Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's quite a challenge to be the last speaker in the last session of quite a long day, and that too just before an inviting cocktail. Now, and when you're running out of time, I'll try and squeeze in as much as I can, as fast as I can. Already 5 minutes are already out, so I'll try and make it in 15. And but I'll quickly, before we, my topic is India's special forces for internal security. In fact, the term itself, special forces, I want to dwell on that because there's a lot of ambiguity on what, and there are varying perceptions of what is a special force. Now, is it a commando force? Is it a para-commando force? Is it an airborne force? In fact, there is a commando syndrome. Everybody is raising a commando force. They pick up, select some chaps, give them some rigorous and hard training, equip them, and they say, I have a special force. Just because you're using it for a specialized task doesn't make it a special force of operation or a special force. What we recognize as SF or special force, whether you call it the SAS, the GIGN, GSG-9, the Delta Force, the Israeli Sayeret Matkal, or the Spetsnaz, or whatever, they have a different meaning altogether. In fact, just by raising a commando force, in fact, some of our states have been calling their commando forces a special operations group. No, actually, that's a misnomer. They're really a SWAT team, using it for counter-terrorism operations or CIA operations. Even for that matter, every infantry battalion in the Indian Army has got a commando platoon, which can perform specialized tasks, which other platoons may not be able to perform. But does that make it an SF? Does that make it a special force? No. There is a difference. A special force is unique in the sense that their training and employment has particular response to political, military, region-specific, cultural, geographic considerations. In fact, they may be employed independently or as an adjunct to conventional operations. In fact, the level of physical and political risk, the mode of employment, techniques, their independence from friendly support. In fact, they can function in small teams. And the dependence on detailed intelligence is one of the hallmarks of what a special force is. And before going into all that in detail, let us first also clarify what is special operations. In fact, there are various definitions on that. I have picked up one of those better known definitions, which says, which is by Maurice Tugwell and D. Charters, which says that special ops are small-scale, clandestine or covert or overt operations of an unorthodox, frequently high-risk nature to achieve significant political or military objectives in support of foreign policy. In fact, the US doctrine of joint special operations published in December 2003 says almost the same thing, except it adds also economic and informational significance. So you can see the political significance of special operations. So basically it's a high strategic utility force for achieving national or strategic objectives. Now, the other point which comes up again, which comes up for discussion a number of times, is their employment. Because most people tend to employ it as a super commando force. There is a force, there is a commando force, there is a super commando force. Their thinking is linear. Or as a super infantry or a glorified elite infantry or a commando force. But not that they cannot be employed on those types of tasks, but they could be better employed on other tasks. Mostly, we have seen that they are being utilized on tactical tasks. Mr. Mehra just talked about the Kargil operations recently. In fact, even in the Kargil operations, whereas the adversary used their SSG along with the NLI, which was identified, we, maybe due to our political considerations, did not employ our special forces in a strategic role going across the LOC, and we used it in set-piece attacks. So, I mean, most of our operation, most of the thinking of people is using it for tactical, whereas they can be employed for strategic, operational and tactical levels. In fact, across the entire spectrum of conflict, that is war and other than war. The characteristics of special operations are given there: politico-military control and overseeing. In this, I would like you to take your mind to the operation of US Navy SEAL Team 6 in Operation Neptune Star, that is killing Osama bin Laden. You see, Obama, his political and military advisor, was sitting and monitoring the operation because of its sensitive and critical nature. That is what is a special operation. A small force doing it, and it has tremendous effects. The amount of effort you put in and the results you get, it's like a force multiplier. It's much beyond the amount of efforts which you have put in. Surprise is again essential for this. And then they require a high level of skills. In fact, for training for this, the special force should, apart from its normal tactical and military skills, it should also have language skills, cultural skills, knowledge of the religion of that part, I mean, geographical considerations, everything what is related to that, they are imparted those skills. And then again, patience is essential. You have seen while trying to locate Obama, they had spent months over it. In fact, they even took DNA samples to make sure that they're getting the right person, and not that they kill somebody else and then finally they say, oh, you got the wrong person. So, I mean, there are lots of patience involved. There are some operations like hijack, hostage rescue, which are time sensitive. You may have to do it immediately. Otherwise, a special force operation would involve all this. And some of the missions which are given, direct action, which may be to seize critical or the raid, ambushes, things like that, or a direct assault or a standoff assault can also be given. Not that cannot be given, but that is not the ideal task for it. Strategic reconnaissance, special reconnaissance, unconventional warfare, counter-terrorism and one other thing, counter-proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. You can use them for specific sites against state or non-state actors, civil affairs, and also psychological operation. These are some of the missions which are given by many of these. This is a distilled sum total of the missions which are given by US or other special forces. Now, as far as I believe a special force is the best force to employ in a counter-insurgency or counter-terrorist operations. As things are standing now, there are going to be less and less wars and more conflicts. Fewer wars and more conflicts. In fact, we are already in that era, and this is likely to be the norm for the future. In fact, as far as India is concerned, the internal security threat is the greatest threat we are facing. That so much so that even our Prime Minister had said so. And it's already been highlighted by most of the speakers, the problems which we are facing. And for this, we require ideally a small, highly trained force. It's not necessary it has to be the special force which I've been talking about. It can be a specialized force which our states are also training and preparing them for that, because it is better to have a force from the same region, same ethnicity, same geographical area, so that the understanding of the situation and the employment there is better. and some of the things which they can be used for: gathering intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, psychological operations, pseudo-gang operations. In fact, that's also been done. Infiltrating terrorist groups, neutralizing terrorist leaders, counter-hijack, hostage rescue. These are some of the things. And some of the Indian special forces that we have are listed here. And let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, the number of special forces which we have is the largest in the world. In fact, even the US doesn't have that many. We have almost 20,000 of them over there. And starting from the Army Para-SF, which was raised somewhere in 1965, the Air Force Garuds. Now the Indian Air Force also wants its own special force for safeguarding its own infrastructure and Air Force related assets, which was first course somewhere passed out in 2004. Then the Navy's Marcos Marine Commandos, raised somewhere in 1987 for, and they are based on the US Navy SEALs and the SBS of the SAS, that is British. So based on both these things, and they utilize for all those marine SF missions like anti-piracy, hostage rescue from a ship, anti-hijack of a ship, sabotage of a harbor, a ship, or things like that. And of course, we have the SFF, Special Frontier Force, also known as Establishment 22. In fact, Mr. Mehra was the head of that at some time. He can even tell you much more about this. Though at presently, it is not that much being utilized. It was raised somewhere in 1962. Then for CICT, we have the National Security Guard, which you heard about in the 2611 Mumbai operations. Most of you must have seen in the TV. This is meant for all types of terrorist activities in any form it may take, including counter-hijack, hostage rescue, building intervention, room intervention, bus, train, metro intervention, everything, you name it, covered under this. Then we have also an RR, Rashtriya Rifles Battalion, earmarked for this and being utilized in J&K. Then we have the Cobra force of the CRP. Cobra is a commando battalion for resolute action. In fact, this has been created specifically against the Naxalite operations. Though initially they didn't have much success, but they have learned from the past and they are now doing fairly well. Though they called themselves the Cobra, the Naxal said, okay, we are the mongoose. Then we'll treat you like the way a mongoose treats a cobra. But anyway, that's now they are doing pretty well. And coming to the technological requirements, I would, instead of listing out and reading out, I'll just say that everything which you think a special force would require, whether it is the Delta Force or the SAS, they require it. Starting, say, this is the place from where the base is there. They require communication right from here to the incident site, satellite, TV feeds, live feeds coming in from there, communication with the police, communication on mobile from people over there. You need to have radio gateways so that mobile, radio set of the police, radio sets of others can come in there. Need to have software defined radios, whether you want to go on to VHF, HF or any other frequency. Need to have broadband radios. You need to have communication on the move. In fact, India being a large country, moving a force from, say, Delhi to Mumbai takes something like 1.5 to 2 hours. Now, all along in that 2 hours, you need to have live feeds, video feeds of what is going on, so that you are briefing your troops over there and they are ready as soon as they land. In fact, you need to have a mobile command post, which is air mobile. The second you land, you're already hooked in with the police control, local police control rooms over there, and you are ready to go in. You already have the information when you are in the air. You are being briefed continuously of what is happening. So that type of communication, it's not that it's not there in the world. It is possible. Like Obama was getting a live feed from exactly the frontline soldier, the SEAL who was going in. So that is what our special forces are also looking for. That is what they like to have for any surgical strike. With the concept of employment of a special forces, lean, mean fighting machine, have a small force, rapidly go there, make a surgical strike, rapidly disengage, regroup, and be prepared for the next strike. And this is exactly what is required in CT ops. This is exactly what our state polices are trying to train their commando platoons also. And we wish, and they would be very shortly employing them in such types of operations. Many have done, have been successful. And of course, ID detection capabilities, though somebody talked about that ground-based radar, but the radar has not been found very effective because it is unable to differentiate between various types of different obstruction and obstacles. A digging has taken place for an ID or a digging has place on something else, and so it cannot make it out. It just shows you something there. Radar penetrating through the wall. Militants are inside that building behind the wall. It is not able to distinguish who's the terrorist, who's not the terrorist. Yes, it will tell you, the radar, that there are 5 people in that room. One person is moving around. So just because he's moving around doesn't mean he's the terrorist and the people who are sitting down are the hostages. Yes, it is possible. But so we require that quality of equipment and technology. We can tell us that can save lives. And just made a laundry list of some of the items. They're already been covered quite in detail earlier. But if you want to know in detail, I can tell you much more than this also. In fact, if I go on, I can take an hour on just this itself. So I don't want to do that. So I've just given an overview. And as far as the training requirements, again, I can keep talking and talking. It will never end. But I just want to give a broad overview. Training, everything regarding intervention and interdiction skills and techniques, counter-hijack negotiation skills, unarmed combat skills. There are different unarmed combat things taken. In Philippines has something, the Israelis have something. So we want to something which is effective and instinctive, which a soldier will automatically use it. Of course, joint training with all the elite forces the world over, the SAS, the Delta Force, GIGN, GSG-9. In fact, NSG has been training. I have seen with the GIGN, with the GSG-9 we were doing when we were there. And of course, elements have gone. Delta Force elements visited us. They have gone there. And similarly, we actually need to train in a live environment. It's a different thing training somewhere else in a peacetime environment unless the target is actually firing back at you. There's no use of any other type of training. You have to put them in an environment, and such environments are available in India. They're already existing. So we have to put them where they can get live training, and that is where they will learn the best. Of course, VIP security is another thing, though it is not an SF job, but NSG is being utilized for it. And there need to be more and more specialization in this, the X category, Y category, Z, Z plus, Z plus plus, and it goes on. So without taking much time, I hope I have been able to finish it in time. Thank you.